Satisfy your need for happiness through your own curiosity with the Ranveer Show. You briefly brought up the India-China situation. There's two ways of approaching this topic. I can get into specifics and ask you specific questions, or I can ask you the more macro style of things, because I anticipate that there's a lot of people watching this podcast who don't follow the news as well. You've reported on China for a long time now. So it's a very macro question. But what is the emotion, generally speaking, that Chinese people have towards Xi Jinping right now? and him as a leader, in many ways, he is the big boss right now in China. Fair to say?
He's the only boss.
Right? Decision maker.
Chairman of all things. That's what they call him. He heads every body worth heading.
Equivalent of a Chinese Putin?
Yeah.
Okay. Xi Jinping, what's your reading of his psychology and how he's looking at ties with India?
Okay, so I don't know how much of Chinese history you've read. One of the biggest fears of the Communist Party in the last century was to not go the way Soviet Russia did. Communist regime that imploded, right? So they decided, Mao did whatever he did, the Cultural Revolution and the crazy experiments that he did, which made the Chinese miserable, but nobody could question it. Then came, I'm talking about broad, Deng Xiaoping. And he gave the slogan, hide your strength and bide your time. Do your work, basically. Don't upset the apple cart. Just focus on what you have at hand and work on the economy. And China saw a lot of progress in that period. Then in the first 10 years of this century, the Chinese say it was the lost decade. They could not do as much as they wanted to. So this is the China that we've seen. And the Chinese kept telling the world that we are going to have a peaceful rise. We will not upset anyone. Then comes Xi Jinping, who starts a crackdown on corruption and puts millions of people in jail or out of work in the name of fighting graft, including top people in the military. And that crackdown still goes on. You know, they call it the tigers and flies. So he says that he will go after the big players, the tigers, and he will swat the flies, the smaller local level corrupt guys. But the Chinese regime, and this is not limited to Xi Jinping, has always been worried about people demanding their political rights. So it is not a very commonly known fact that China's expenditure on internal security is more than their expenditure on external security or military forces. That is how much money they are scared of protests. That is why the firewall, that is why the tight curbs on what information goes to people. In the age of the internet, it's not easy to always stop everything.
The tight curbs on psychology.
Yeah. So that is one challenge for him. The second challenge is the debt bubble. Local governments grew because they took a lot of debt. That debt became unsustainable. The property market, that bubble has burst. Some very big players have gone under. Evergrande, Country Garden, others, they've struggled. There are people who put their life savings into homes, did not get the homes. The money is nowhere to be found. The builder is gone bust. There is a lot of anger there. Then the banks cannot take any more loans. China's debt is unsustainable. So is America's, but this is a more peculiar case. So one reading is that, and while all of this is happening and there's a lot of internal chaos, this guy goes around poking everyone. Philippines, Vietnam, India, US, Japan, Australia, picking fights with everyone, left, right, and center. They have a lot of money. They have the biggest navy in the world. They have a big military infrastructure, but it's an untested military. Nobody knows. Just having weapons does not ensure victory. The US saw it in Vietnam. The US saw it in Afghanistan. You could say those were different conflicts, but I'm saying that's not enough. What are you going to do? Then he wants to take Taiwan. So I think one reading is that, and I also subscribe to that thought, that he overplayed his hand, tried to do everything too soon. China isn't there yet, and the pandemic did not help him at all. So they tried to do their own soft power thing and hard power. They tried to mix it with this BRI. They gave loans to a lot of countries. But those loans became debt traps. So those countries are regretting. So basically, you've spent money, you've built a force, but nobody likes you. Your own people don't like you, and your neighbors don't like you, and the rest of the world doesn't trust you. It's not an ideal situation to be in. Having said that, there is no credible or significant challenge to his power in today's China right now.
And so?
And so we'll have to wait and see what happens.
The only people who are capable of making predictions are the people who study situations day in and day out.
I'm not making predictions. I'm just giving you my reading of the situation. Things can...
Ma'am, you're in pole position to give the readings.
Thank you. And you insist on calling me ma'am, so we'll let that slide.
It's either bro or ma'am, so you choose.
I like bro.
If you enjoyed today's clip, make sure you check out these curated playlists that we've made especially for you related to the subject that was spoken about in this clip.